me bring in my guest on the program today, criminal defense attorney John Mobley. Oh, John, my goodness, Sherra Wright, as soon as I was hearing all of this, you know, through her cousin is sharing her words, and I just kept thinking, like, is this to try to manipulate people close to her further, like to get people who she would think might be on her side, like her cousin, to believe that she couldn't possibly carry out what she admitted in a court of law that she directed to be carried out? What did you make of it, please?
I have so many different thoughts on this testimony. I'm even struggling with why I was allowed in. You know, it's the very definition of hearsay. Well,
right.
Technically it's not hearsay, but you know, I guess they could argue it's a co-conspirator exception, but you can't use hearsay to prove the conspiracy that you're trying to prove. I mean, I think I have a major problem with that. I have a problem with this witness getting immunity to give this one piece of testimony from a decade ago, and you know, and I think just trying to introduce that just almost smells of desperation by the prosecution, that they're just grasping at straws to try to find anything at all to have some evidence against you know, the defendant. And what's clear as well is from her testimony that even assuming these conversations took place, the defendant was not a party to the conversations where he was given any feedback or involved in any discussions or planning. That, you know, this murdering ex-wife is just on these rants, on these, you know, almost seemingly paranoid rants about this, you know, ex-husband having a hit against her. And I guess her plan is to get the landscaper, who everyone says is simple-minded, to execute this murder to prevent the hit from being executed. I mean, it just seems like it's a desperate story the prosecution trying to tell in this case, and I think they need to leave this kind of stuff out and keep a cleaner trial.
Yeah, it does muddy the waters, doesn't it? It really does, especially because the jury hasn't seen Sherra Wright yet. You know, maybe they just kind of like might be imagining, you know, what this woman's all about. And to me, she's far more dangerous than anybody in all this, because she's the mastermind. She's the one who plotted and planned this sinister crime, you know, to murder, you know, her husband, the father of her 6 kids. And so I think that, you know, in this trial, to your point about how, you know, it shouldn't have come in, perhaps because it's hearsay, right? And also, does it really help the prosecution? You know, John, like you've said, it kind of looks a little desperate. To prove what they've got to prove, that Billy Ray Turner was the gunman, do you think there's going to be any kind of struggle, you know, with that, to prove that he was actually the one who pointed the gun at Lorenzen Wright's head and fired?
I mean, I think they have major problems with that. I mean, they clearly don't have any physical evidence whatsoever. And you have the situation whereby all of their key witnesses, their star witnesses, are all cooperating under, you know, plea agreements and have no credibility. And I think the defense has done a good job of portraying his client as the simple-minded landscaper. This is not an intelligent guy. You know, this is a guy that goes to church and he's friends with everybody, and he can make a great argument. He's just a dupe. That in order to get a better deal, the cousin, you know, is the one that's already convicted of one murder. He's decided, okay, I can get less time by laying it on this guy. That guy's stupid. He's the dupe. So I think, I mean, the state's going to have a major problem with this, and I just think they don't have great witnesses. They have no physical evidence, and I think they could have what is a very sympathetic defendant.
Yeah, yeah. You know, and going back to what we just saw from Claudia Robinson, you really got me thinking. You made such an excellent point, John, about how it muddied the waters, and then also it might have kind of cut both ways, because I think maybe their intent was to make Sherra Wright look like a big liar. But if somebody believes that, if some juror's hanging on to that thinking, oh, was Sherra Wright's life at risk? Like, could it be true that Lorenzen Wright, who's the victim on this, had a hit out on her? Then it almost could make her look sympathetic to somebody if that's to be believed. And how can it be reliable, to your point? So, you know, unless you're hearing it like straight from the horse's mouth, unless Sherra, you know, comes in and surprises everybody saying that, I don't know that it was wise to put that in, huh?
And I don't know that she would be a credible witness on that point. I mean, I'm not hearing anything at all about the victim having a history of making threats toward Sherry
No.
or violence toward her or any animosity on his part at all. It's everything is just on her. So I don't think she'd be a credible woman or credible witness, rather, coming up there on the witness stand giving musings of him having hits on her and she heard it. You know, I mean, what I didn't hear from Robinson was any details about, you know, why she believed there was a hit or who she heard it from or why he would put out a hit on her. It's just saying he's got a hit on me. He's got a hit on me with seemingly no real motive for him to do that.
Right, John. John, let me pick your brain, please, about what the defense should really be here, because we know that he's being defended on innocence grounds. His attorney is saying he absolutely did not do this. Must have been somebody else. We have, you know, two very bad characters who we know were in the mix. How would you very pointedly defend this case if you were defending Billy Ray Turner?
Well, one thing you look at definitely is there's zero physical evidence tying the defendant to the crime. Jurors want to see that nowadays. I mean, this is the age of CSI, and everyone sees fingerprints and DNA evidence, and they watch the cold case TV shows where they believe, you know, that there should be physical evidence. Even if it's 10, 15, 20 years old, there should be something out there that they can tie the defendant. They have nothing in this case on that. That's one thing. They don't have any admissions by the defendant. They don't have any statement by him implicating himself in the crime, even admitting an inappropriate relationship with Sherra Wright. They don't have that. And they really only have the word of these individuals who have no credibility. They are giving the jury the devil, and they want to convict an innocent person on the word of a devil with no corroboration. And I think that's a major problem that the prosecution got to overcome, and the defense is to point that out. The lack of evidence, the lack of credible witnesses, you know, the plea deals, and the way the prosecution really, they structured this testimony to benefit a murderer or potentially two murderers to give false testimony because they have no evidence whatsoever. Look at what the case the prosecution has without the testimony of these two star witnesses who they cut deals with, and it's nothing. It's non-existent. So I think that, and making sure that the defendant is portrayed as an innocent dupe. He's not an intelligent man. He's not a smart man. He's somebody that pushes the lawnmower, that goes to church. And now they're trying to lay this entire complicated murder scheme on his feet. So those are the principles that I go with in this case. Oh,
I love it. I love everything you said. The wheels were turning in my head as you were talking there, John. And you were saying, you know, to portray Sherra Wright as the devil and then contrast her with the deacon. Right? To the deacon or the dupe, as you said, you know, a deacon who was duped. Yeah, to distance him. I look at all this alliteration in our conversation here, but thematically, these are the things that jurors want to hear, right? They want something to hang on to. Like we were saying in the last hour when Jack Rice was on, the dirty deeds, right? Somebody tweeted me the AC/DC lyric, you know, dirty deeds done dirt cheap. And, you know, people can relate to something thematic, right? Whether the motivation was lust or money or just, you know, criminals being criminals. You know, who knows what it was. But yeah, it's like to distance him, you're right. They've got to go with the, wasn't me, don't know who it was. I was, you know, duped and this whole other mess was going on between the two people who are in prison right now. So we'll see if he testifies. Do you think he'll testify? Do you think Billy Ray Turner's going to get up there?
You know, I would not if I was him. I don't think they got a strong enough case. And my rule is always, and of course, if you talk to different lawyers, you get different opinions. Yeah. My rule is, if you don't have to testify, don't do it. The state doesn't have a strong case against him. I don't know how well he'll hold up on cross-examination. So I would stay in the chair.